and welcome to the CFB SuperShow live before lock Q&A edition. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, a.k.a. Dub Deuces 85, a.k.a. all those other fancy nicknames that you want to use. It is week 7, and we are out here. The CFB DFS Discord channel on FTN is popping. Questions are flying. Lineup screenshots are all over the place. We're having a lot of good discussions happening. There is news galore. We have a updated ownership projection aggregated for you guys. Lots of stuff happening. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you smash that like button and comment, questions, concerns, anything at all. Just interact with me and the show. This is for you. And if you're on Twitter, watching over there on Twitter/X, go ahead and retweet that out for me. Get more eyeballs on this sucker as we get through it. A very weird week of week 7 so far. The weekday slates were a lot of overlap, like 6 to 7 guys off 50% or more. But we have ourselves a very spread out slate today. Exciting stuff. And $100K to first up top $25 GPP happening on DraftKings. I didn't think it was going to fill. When I looked at it yesterday, I thought, man, that's not going to fill. Now I'm looking at it, 13.4 thousand entries with a possible 14.1, 54 minutes to lock. That baby's going to fill. That baby is going to fill. 14.1 thousand people playing some college football today, trying to win $100,000. All right, let's get into it. What do we want to talk about? Brett Belkey in the house. Hello, my friend. How are you? Let's start with the news dump. So we really like the cheap receivers on this slate, which is pretty ordinary for us. We usually pay up for running backs where possible. We run 4 of them quite often. If you're new here, I had some new people in the Discord this morning asking about lineup builds. And more often than not, we try to go super cheap at receiver for at least 2 of those spots. Every once in a while, we'll pay up, like Xavier Henderson today, who I really like. But there's just so many cheapies. One of them that I was pretty high on and felt like was going to be a sneak of sorts and actually projected really well against this Wake Forest secondary was Bryant Wesco of Clemson. A little pricey at 4.7, but it doesn't matter. He is not just announced this morning, like, 15 minutes before I go live. Not sure why they wouldn't have said it yesterday. They had to have known, right? Maybe not. Maybe they traveled late. I don't know. But he did not travel to Wake Forest for the game. No Bryant Wesco for Clemson. That's a pretty big loss. You might look at it and be like, well, he's just a freshman. What's he going to do? They don't need him. He is a big play threat, and he has worked his way to 3rd on the team in targets with 19, 11 catches for 262 yards and 2 touchdowns. So what does this do for us without Wesco? You have the 2 obvious answers, and I think one will be relatively popular in Antonio Williams. Leads the team in targets with 26, has 19 catches for 284 yards, 284 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And then you have the old reliable, the showdown special, as it were, the tight end Jake Brenningstool, who has 22 targets on the year, 17 catches for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns. Both of those players with 73% or higher catch rates. Very reliable options. As I said, I believe Antonio Williams will be relatively popular now. He's only 5K, great matchup. Those targets are going to be coming his way, and he has the safest floor. But does he have the upside necessary to win you that 100K? I would say probably not. He does have multi-touchdown upside. That can happen, but you go back to the game against NC State when he did catch 2 touchdowns. He scored about 18.9 fantasy points. Now, 18.9 is great at 5K, but I don't know that that slaps. I don't know that that has the home run potential that you need. There is one other player. Well, there's several that you could look at, but there's really one that I think benefits the most from this injury news that we have just had. We also have Tyler Brown, who traveled. It doesn't seem like he's going to be anywhere close to 100%. We'll see. But the name you need to know is near min price, 3.1K, TJ Moore, a fellow freshman. Another somewhat home run hitter, as it were. He caught a touchdown pass of 23 yards last week against FSU, caught a 33-yarder a few weeks back against Appy State, and he's been more and more involved as the season has gone. He had a 40-yard reception against NC State. He can absolutely take the top off of the defense. More targets coming his way, surely. More of a GPP look, sure, but this is the perfect play. Near min price, get you some of those up top payups that we like. He catches a touchdown, perhaps 2, maybe a long reception or 3. You have yourself suddenly a 2% owned play capable of pushing you up the leaderboards in a tournament with 14,000 people. Now, those of you that play NFL Sundays and the Millie Makers and all that, you look at 14,000 and you laugh. You say, is that all you got? Well, let me tell you something. It's a lot for us, okay? But yeah, TJ Moore, that is the name to know. I don't know if he's ultimately going to make my main, but I am going to have exposure. And there's a lot of people messaging in DMs and Discords. I'll try to get to all of those today. I'm going to be answering on the show for time. I need to get off of here with 15 minutes to go because I have lineups that I still need to finish. But that is the main name, the main news that I want you to know. Already getting asked, TJ Moore over Brenningstool. I think yes. I think the answer is yes in large field, single entry, maybe not. I think that's the way to go when it comes to GPPs. All right. I'll keep an eye out for any other. Hey, Mr. Maryland in the house. Which QB do you like best today that's not Holstein? Well, let me tell you something, brother. Holstein's not actually my favorite quarterback. He probably should be, but I'm a little bit inappropriate joke alert. It's like, you're going to put the expensive quarterback stuffed animal in front of me and then ask me, where did he hurt me? After paying up for Jalen Milroe last week, not really the way I like to build. I got caught up in the Heisman, hype there. Not saying that Holstein won't perform at 9-7, but I'm definitely much more comfortable paying up at running back than I am quarterback. So Holstein's not my favorite, but he's definitely one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks on the slate. And looking at some of the ownership, he's reflecting that. My favorite quarterback right now in a single QB lineup, it's kind of a tie, which isn't the answer I know you want. I usually take a stand, but Haynes King of Georgia Tech and Riley Leonard of Notre Dame. One is going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate, and one actually is coming in a little bit lower than I would have thought, which kind of plays into the whole, hey, this team was really chalky last week on the night slate, 70% owned, they bricked. Are people going to overlook them? And it kind of sounds like maybe they will. Riley Leonard's going to be the highest owned quarterback on the slate. Dual threat QBs have given Stanford real issues. We talked about that at length on Thursday night. Leonard calls his own number. We know he is a fantastic option here, should score a lot against Stanford. Haynes King gets the great matchup against North Carolina that Holstein just detonated in. Saw our guy Alonzo Barnett from JMU a couple of weeks ago drop 70 on these boys. It's a great spot for Haynes King. So it's a toss-up between those two. I haven't quite decided yet. I am running a few lineups in the 25, so I'll probably just end up splitting them. Running them together is also absolutely in play. If you see news while I'm on here, feel free to drop it in there. Milton says, add Micah Mays to the min price options. I have another 0.00001% play that you guys might like that I kind of mentioned. Micah Mays, of course, 3K for Wake Forest, had the really strong game against NC State, 4 catches for 48 yards. I believe that was on 6 targets. Is listed as the starter on the current depth chart for Wake Forest. Injuries piling up everywhere. They're not quite to the Oklahoma level of injuries, but Wake Forest definitely has some issues there. Donovan Green, we know, obviously doubtful, hasn't been playing. Walker Merrill now dealing with issues. So don't hate the idea of using Mays there. Clemson's defense is good, but they're not elite by any means. And then Isaac Brown. Yep. Isaac Brown is going to be very, very chalky. While we're on the topic of cheap receivers, might as well just keep it going. So the bold call of the week is going to be in another injury fest that is the Virginia receiving room. Tyree out, Sudarian Harrison out, he's trending out, hasn't officially been designated that way. We'll see. And then Trell Harris, of course, extremely questionable as well. Now, we saw last week, not the North Carolina transfer Andre Green, who did have 4 receptions for 25 yards, made a little bit of an appearance there. But it wasn't him that made the impression. It was the 3K special for me, J.R. Wilson, who appears to be fully healthy. Really looked good. 4 catches for 44 yards. This was a guy coming into the year that they were planning to be the 3rd starter. Did deal with a late summer injury, but all through summer camp, all through practices, the spring game, he was one of the stars of the spring game. This is a name that they really, really like and has the opportunity to be a very, very good receiver. He's about 6'1", 6'2", over 200 pounds. Malachi Fields, also a pretty tall dude and big guy. So you get those 2 receivers out there. They can body some guys. Louisville's defense, they're falling apart a little bit. They're banged up as well. I think J.R. Wilson is going to put his name on the map today. And looking at it, it doesn't appear that many people are going to be rostering him. In fact, if it's 1 to 2%, that 1 to 2% is going to come directly from me and the FTN community, because I don't see anyone else talking about him. But he is my favorite min price option. My favorite value receiver is Colin Lacey, who is trending back towards being chalky, not 40 to 50% chalky, maybe 20 to 25%. But J.R. Wilson is going to be the one that I am predicting lands on the optimal. Take that for what you will. All right. Damn, there's a lot going on. All right, so let's get into ownership now. Try to speed round this. I will get to these DMs. I'm trying my best. Okay. All right, so looking at some of the aggregated ownerships, there isn't a ton of surprises, maybe a couple. Starting at quarterback, predictably Riley Leonard as the highest owned quarterback. We'll go top 4 here. Second, looks like pulling an absolute ton of ownership here, at least what we think, is Cade Klubnik. Clemson's offense has been so electric. They're just putting up a ton of points. I don't see Wake Forest doing much to stop that. Like I mentioned on the show, I think Clemson and Coach Dabo Sweeney are in a little bit of a mode where they're on a revenge tour, and they're just going to keep dropping point after point after point. So Klubnik pulling some ownership here. Eli Holstein, despite being expensive, people still going to try to go there for good reason. He's been good in every single game this year. Nate Arnell expected to be the starter to come out. I wasn't really looking at Holstein too much, but that first game, he really showed out, and he has not stopped since. So that makes sense. And then, of course, Haynes King, who right now have him at about 20 to 21%. I thought it might be higher, but maybe that's a little bit of people feeling, some kind of way about last week's performance. And then right after that, to round out the top 5, I know I said 4, but Brendan Sorsby. Really like the Cincinnati stack this week. Brendan Sorsby is my guy. At running back, Desmond Reed, no surprise. You break the slate so many times, you're going to be highly owned regardless of what your price is. So expect to see a lot of Desmond Reed. Isaac Brown, who Milton mentioned there, only 4.3. A lot of sites hyping him up. He's going to be one of the primary value plays, I think, next to Colin Lacey, which are both Louisville guys, Louisville, Virginia stack. Looking pretty sizable and pretty nice. Brown, it's not a good matchup by any means, but it looks like he's going to get the volume, and he's active enough in the passing game where that play makes sense. But I could see that one being a little bit of Micah Ford from a few weeks ago, where he was brutally chalky, or he was super chalky, and then he just had that brutal letdown game. So tread carefully there. Then we have Phil Maffa. So lots of Clemson love this week. Phil Maffa and Cade Klubnik. I don't know if people are going to do the quarterback to running back pairing. That's worked pretty well throughout the season, but I don't envision Maffa and Klubnik being a good one to do that with. The offense could explode, but generally I want either the passing game or the running game. I don't like to mix and match them there with the Clemson team like I do with Pittsburgh, like we do with UCF in the past. Georgia Tech this week could work that way. Just not a real big fan of doing that with Clemson. And then we have Caleb Johnson. No real surprise there. Great matchup. I don't think he's going to pull like some 30% number. God, I hope not. But going up against my Huskies, they're susceptible to high volume, brutal, violent backs. He should be very, very good. And then RJ Harvey. A few names that I'm seeing coming up the board a little bit. Jamal Haynes for good reason. And then also Kobe Pace of Virginia. Now, I don't like the running game for Virginia. And if I do, it's more like a Xavier Brown game for me. Now, I know he's dealing with several injuries as well, but he doesn't appear to be in the injury report right now. He's been pilfering enough work from Pace, especially as a kind of secondary receiver. I think that the running defense of Louisville is good enough to kind of stifle those guys. They do struggle more against dual threat quarterbacks, and I think Colin Drea could have a nice game on the ground here, which nobody's talking about him. But I am not on board with using Pace in a main lineup. He is only 4-3. I would much rather use Isaac Brown. I get the play, and that might hurt me fading, but he just does not look like a very good play to me this week. All right, and then at wide receiver, Darius Lassiter, Malik Rutherford, both very cheap. You're going to see all like expensive receivers this week are contrarian. Tight end for Cincinnati, Joe Royer. Colin Lacey, who is trending to be higher on than I had hoped. People are smart in this industry. What can I say? And Antonio Williams, all sub 6K receivers there that you're seeing. Again, Lassiter, Royer, Rutherford, seeing a lot of them. Colin Lacey, Antonio Williams. The top stacks for me, I've been getting asked a lot about that. The Georgia Tech one is obvious. I really like Cincy, and that is the Sorsby, Royer, Xavier Henderson. Henderson about 8% this week projected right now. Love that triple stack. It's really easy to run it back with RJ Harvey at running back. I think that 4-man stack is going to be way under-owned compared to what it should be. I think the individual pieces will see sizable ownership, somewhere between 15 and 25% on each. But altogether, I don't think we see very many lineups built that way. And then also, if you can get to it, the pit stack, which of course Holstein and Reed, prime pairing partners because of Reed's receptions, but also Kanata Mumfield and more of the sneak, Raphael Poppy Williams, who is going to be 1% owned most likely. Major touchdown upside. Very comfortable in this offense from Western Carolina, just like Desmond Reed. I think we see him have a pretty good game today. And again, nobody rostering him whatsoever. All right. We're about 38 minutes from lock. We're going to go for about 10 more minutes. I have a lot of lineups to build. So if you have any questions, get them in. I'm going to go through and start rapid firing here. Can you play King, Rutherford, and Haynes together? If so, assuming you would both prefer Haynes Lacey versus Tawi Walker and Isaac Brown. Yes, if you want to, that's established. The quarterback running back pairing, it's a pretty nice edge to have. I don't see a lot of people doing that very often. I think you can do it this week against North Carolina. Rutherford is my preferred receiver over Singleton. Sounds like the rest of the industry feels the same. As far as those duos go, Haynes Lacey would be my preferred over Isaac Brown Walker. Walker, we love volume play, not the best matchup, very cheap still, not a lot of ownership this week. Perhaps he can do an encore to what he did last week, but it is going to be tougher. And then Brown as just a volume play. I honestly feel like there's going to be a Micah Ford brick there between Brown and Pace. If that's what people are running in their lineups, that's pretty damn lean, especially at a position that we like to pay up for normally. We as in myself, Jake, the FTN community. So yes, Haynes and Lacey would be Much better there for me. Preferred $6,200 receiver on DraftKings. There's not really anyone there. You'll have to go down. Mumfield's probably your best bet at 5'8". Giles Jackson at 5'7". We want to test the DVP against Iowa. He is the slot receiver there. Slot receivers and intermediate route specialists, if you will, have done very well against Iowa. Who is your favorite Longhorn? Red River rivalry tends to shoot out. That game is, I don't have any faith in Oklahoma keeping that one competitive. Jonte Cook. If you want Texas exposure, Jonte Cook. Harvey versus Reed. Harvey is my number one running back this week. I want both Harvey and Reed wherever I can, but if I can only play one, it is going to be Harvey. Lassiter, yes. Favorite receiver under 4,300. Paul and Lacey, and it's a chalky answer, but it is what it is, as they say. All right. Is running Maffa and TJ Moore viable? You can. Certainly, Clemson mini stacks today, I think, will be somewhat popular, but not TJ Moore. So kind of mixing and matching some pieces there makes sense. I think we might see some Maffa, Klubnik, Antonio Williams stacks out there. So getting more in there is a way for you to stay exposed to a healthy offense, but having a sub 5% piece there. If Sorsby, you double stacking or single stacking? I am double right now. Any Sorsby lineup I have, and I have 3 of them. They all have Royer and Henderson. I don't have any without. Earlier, somebody was asking me about Corey Kiner with Sorsby. I wouldn't do that. I know running back, quarterback stacks. I talk about it all the time, but that's not one. I'm not sure. They say Kiner's going to be healthy, but we'll see. And UCF's rush defense is much better than their passing defense. I think that Sorsby is going to be able to throw very easily. 40-plus attempts this week. Concentrated target share to Henderson and Royer. I want it all. Yes, triple stack galore. Getting a lot of people asking me about J.R. Wilson now. Yes, one thing you can count on with me when I say I'm playing somebody, I am playing somebody. And when I designate them some sort of, in college basketball, I call it the posh play of the day, which is basically my version of the sneak. When I designate somebody with that, I'm like very high, very heavy. We have a good track record with those type of plays. It's a little more high variance in football, of course, but yes, J.R. Wilson is going to be in my main lineup. All right. Giles Jackson lower owned. Yes. The Washington receivers, people are still going to be stuck in that mindset that Iowa, their defense is too good. And it is. They're very good against the run. Let's get that on tape right now. Much more susceptible against the pass. We tested my DVP, theory last week with noticing how, hey, these slot receivers are doing work against these guys. And it worked with Emeka Buka. He rewarded us with 971 and 3. I don't feel as confident or comfortable this week. Jackson does run the slot, which is the position that hurts them, but he's much more dynamic. He's much more dangerous as a deep threat. And that's what Iowa doesn't really allow. Much more susceptible to those shorter routes, middle of the field stuff. And that's where Denzel Boston is a little bit more adequate. But I'm not really keen on paying 7.7 for him this week. I'd rather just pay for Henderson at 7.2. But yes, Jackson will be lower owned. He's worth a shot if you want to continue to test the DVP, and if he works out, if he actually has a great game today, which is very possible, then there will be no Iowa games where I don't take the slot receiver against them the rest of the season. I'm a DVP guy, though. What can I say? Pokey Zach putting me to the test, man. Putting me to the test. TJ Moore or J.R. Wilson. Well, I just gave my spiel about how Wilson is my posh play of the day, my version of the sneak. So I will go Wilson, but I do like TJ Moore a lot. He's more of a GPP look, large field, that type of thing. I actually think Wilson is a cash / single entry viable play today. I'm married to the Wilson play, so Wilson is the option there for me. Any Bauer Sharp love? Feels like Oklahoma gets boat race today. Yes, I don't see them competing. Bauer Sharp certainly makes sense as somebody who's going to get some of the looks, but I think that we're going to see a ton of 3 and outs for Oklahoma, and I think Texas hits a couple big plays early, and then they just run the football, run the clock out, get Ewers out of there healthy, good to go, preparing for their next matchup. All right, we're about 30 minutes away from lock. Just doing a quick look at news here. I want to see if there's any updates for anything at all. Availability report just came out for Washington, but nobody relevant on there. College game day going to Texas, Georgia next week. Ooh. One other stack that I want to mention here while I'm looking up news to see if anything pops up is the BYU stack. I think Jake Retzloff is a really nice look today, 2% owned. Lassiter is trending to be quite chalky. Chase Roberts is a good pivot off of him, but the BYU triple stack has a lot of upside. Big believer in BYU. They make plays. Their defense is elite. And I think that they're going to kind of handle Arizona with a 10 to 14 point win. So the Retzlaff stack makes some sense here for us. I did, yes. Let me do it one more time. I'll run through it, and then I think we're gonna wrap up here. Unless you guys have any other questions, I have chasing that 100K today, and I'm worried that I'm not going to get finished with the lineups I need to get finished with. So quarterback, the top 5 there are Riley Leonard, Eli Holstein, Haynes King, Cade Klubnik. That might surprise you. And then what was the other one that I had here? My sheet's all messed up. Brendan Sorsby with Tyler Shuck right behind. At running back, no surprise, Desmond Reed, RJ Harvey, Phil Maffa, Isaac Brown, and Jamal Haynes. Sorry, I don't have this by position. I didn't have time before the show, so I'm reading it out of position. And then at receiver, Darius Lassiter, one of the highest owned on the slate, which may surprise you. It kind of surprised me. I knew he'd be owned, but one of the highest, a bit shocking. Malik Rutherford, Joe Royer, Colin Lacey, and Antonio Williams. So expensive receivers are contrarian this week. If you want to get that Cincy stack, I think you'll get it at low rostership there for the most part with Henderson. Royer is going to be higher owned, of course, but for the most part, it's the players that we thought: Riley Leonard, Isaac Brown, Malik Rutherford, Desmond Reed, those type of players that are going to be very chalky, which we kind of expected. Colin Lacey's been trending upwards. Seemed like we were going to get him under 20%, but now he has skated towards 30 about an hour ago when I did this. And I guess people are smarter than we give them credit for on Thursday, because they are also going back to Colin Lacey. Same situation, just makes too much sense, right? I got somebody asking me if they should bet the Washington money line. I love my team, but I see a lot of people betting the spread and touts providers, I should say, pushing that. I don't think traveling to Iowa, playing their game clock is 9 a.m. for them, so it's 8:33 for them on the West Coast, like it is for me. That's going to screw with them. I think that it's bad. I think it's all bad. The West Coast, it's not all the way to the East Coast necessarily, but it's all bad, man. It is all bad for my Huskies today. Nick Singleton still sneaky. You know what? The people are scared of Penn State because They don't want to get jerked around with Singleton might play, might not. You've got Katron Allen looming. So as it stands right now, the ownership projections on both are quite low. DVP wise, it's still a great spot. USC cannot defend the run. They cannot stop the run. Get some Tyler Warren exposure. He gets some carries. But yeah, Singleton. I was finding on my lineups ending up with about the Singleton price range. And I do believe he's going to play full reps today. 15 plus touches is all he's going to need to put up a pretty decent score. I knew what you meant, brother. I knew what you meant. All right. I think that'll wrap it up. I got, just about 25 minutes, 24 minutes before a lock. Feel free to hit me on DMs on Discord at DubDeuces85. Also the same on Twitter. Main two places. If you have my number, feel free to text me as well. Appreciate everybody who's continued to support the show. We will be having a full week next week. We have Thursday night breaking down the main slate, 9 p.m. PST, midnight on the East Coast. We'll be flying solo most likely for that one. Jake is going to Hawaii, that bum. Not even to see a Hawaii football game either. Could have gone there today and seen Boise State play. But we're going to be flying solo on Thursday. So expect a long-winded vintage Dub Deuces performance on the mic. And then, of course, next Saturday, same time, same place, Q&A. We are less than 26 days away from the college basketball season. Then you will see me Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Appreciate it, guys. Take care. Best of luck. Let's get those green screens and those window trips. Week 7. Let's do it.